There's a clock on the wall behind you right now, or a number glowing on your phone, and some part of your brain is tracking it even when you're not looking. You know exactly how late you are. You know exactly how much time is left. You have never once, in your entire life, experienced a day without knowing what time it is. This is not normal. This is not how humans live for the overwhelming majority of our existence on this planet. And the version of time you carry in your head right now, precise, numbered, identical everywhere, ticking forward at a constant rate, is one of the strangest inventions our species has ever made. For most of human history, time was not a number. It was a texture. This is the foundational shift that everything else rests on. Ancient and pre-industrial humans did not experience time as an abstract, uniform quantity moving at a fixed pace. They experienced it as a sequence of tasks, seasons, and natural events, and the length of an hour, if such a concept existed at all, changed depending on what was happening in it. The anthropologist Edward Evans-Pritchard spent years living among the Nuer people of South Sudan, and what he found reshaped how scholars understood time itself. The Nuer did not organize their days around clock hours. They organized them around the rhythms of their cattle. A stretch of time was described by what task filled it: milking, watering the herds, moving camp. Time was not something that passed independently of activity. Time was the activity. You can find this pattern nearly everywhere before the mechanical clock. Farmers measure a unit of work by how long it took to plow a field, not by how many minutes had elapsed. Sailors measured watches by the burning of a rope. Monks measured the day by prayer, and prayer by the position of the sun. An hour in summer, when daylight lasted long, was a genuinely different length than an hour in winter, because many pre-modern timekeeping systems divided daylight itself into 12 equal parts, whatever the season. A summer hour could be nearly twice as long as a winter one. Think about what that means. The hour was not fixed. It bent around the day. This was not primitive. This was not a lesser version of timekeeping waiting to be corrected. It was a coherent system built around the actual rhythms of the natural and social world. And it worked because human bodies and human tasks were never uniform to begin with. The shift away from this began with a piece of technology, and it happened faster and more completely than most people realize. The mechanical clock emerged in European monasteries in the 13th century, designed initially to regulate prayer. Within 2 centuries, it had moved from church towers into town squares, and from town squares into the rhythm of daily labor itself. The historian E.P. Thompson documented this transition in detail, showing how the rise of clock time was inseparable from the rise of industrial work discipline. Before the clock, a worker's day was measured by task. After the clock, a worker's day was measured by duration, and the two are not the same thing at all. Task time asks, is the job done? Clock time asks, has the allotted period expired? These produce completely different relationships to your own life. Under task orientation, you finish when the work is finished, and the boundary between labor and rest is set by the task itself. Under clock orientation, your time becomes a resource, something that can be bought, sold, wasted, saved, and owned by someone other than you. Thompson found evidence of workers being fined for tardiness, factories installing bells and clocks specifically to synchronize labor, and a new moral vocabulary emerging around time itself. Punctuality as virtue, lateness as sin, idleness as waste. This is the birth of the sentence you have said to yourself 100 times. I don't have time. Notice what that sentence assumes. It assumes time is a substance you can run out of, a fixed quantity being consumed, rather than a texture shaped by what you are doing inside it. Pre-industrial humans, for the most part, did not think this way because their language for time did not give them the concept to think it. There is a deeper layer here, and it involves your own body. Chronobiologists who study circadian rhythms, researchers like Till Renneberg, have shown that human beings have internal biological clocks that vary meaningfully from person to person, and that these internal rhythms are frequently out of sync with the externally imposed schedule of the standardized day. This mismatch has a name: social jet lag. It describes the chronic, low-grade exhaustion of forcing a body with its own natural rhythm to conform to a clock that does not know or care what that rhythm is. Before artificial lighting and standardized schedules, human sleep and waking were shaped far more by light, temperature, and task than by any external number. The clock did not just change how humans organized their days. It changed how humans were allowed to exist inside their own biology. So why did we adopt something that fights against our own bodies this persistently? Because clock time was extraordinarily useful for coordinating large numbers of strangers who did not share a task, a season, or a location. You cannot run a railway schedule, a global market, or a modern factory on the rhythm of when the cattle need watering. Clock time allowed coordination at a scale that task time never could. It let ships from different countries meet at a port, let trades happen across time zones, let civilizations synchronize themselves into a single measurable grid. The cost of that coordination was your relationship to your own days. This is not a story about ancient humans being closer to nature and modern humans being disconnected from it, though that framing tempts people because it flattens something more interesting. It is a story about a trade. Humans gave up a form of time that bent around the body and the task, and received in exchange a form of time that could synchronize billions of strangers who will never meet. Both are real achievements. Both come with a cost the other does not have. You can feel the residue of the older system even now in the moments when clock time briefly loses its grip. A conversation with someone you love that felt like minutes but was hours. A task you were fully absorbed in, where you looked up and the entire afternoon had vanished. Psychologists call this flow, but ancient humans would not have needed the word because for them, task-based time was simply time. The disorientation you feel when you check the clock after being deeply absorbed in something is not a glitch. It is your task-oriented ancestry briefly reasserting itself against the schedule you now live inside. What you have lost is not time itself. Time has not changed. What you have lost is a way of inhabiting it, a texture of experience where the length of an hour depended on what filled it, where lateness was not a moral failure, where your body's own rhythm was not something to be corrected against an external standard. You will look at a clock again today, probably within the next few minutes. When you do, you might notice that the number tells you nothing about what actually happened inside that hour, how it felt, what it held, whether it stretched or collapsed. Ancient humans built their entire relationship to time around exactly that texture. We built ours around erasing it. The number on the clock is not wrong. It is simply not the whole truth about the hour it claims to measure. It never was.